Alright guys, I've been asked to react to Xbox Was Right. They realized and acted on the market shift. If there are more content you wish me to react to, you can do that in my Discord. So feel free to drop by, post it in the reactions list, and we can make it done there. But, alright, let's see what's being said here. And hopefully, it's a good one. Let's go. 3, 2, 1.
When Xbox said that in their marketing campaign, if you didn't have an Xbox, it wasn't really a big deal, a lot of people basically, in a sense, just crucified them. There was just no way that a company who, made consoles would tell anybody that you can play our games without a console. Now, again, some of us who knew and saw this move kind of understood that a lot of these folk were basically taking on a myopic view. In fact, in some cases, some of the folks were exhibiting straight up pure malice. They did not want to acknowledge that this was a technological advancement that Xbox could gain from. And in their minds, you can play Xbox on a TV. And then Xbox continued and basically kept making this known. And they doubled down with the "This is an Xbox" campaign, showing that basically devices of specific natures can access Xbox's ecosystem.
Now here's the other thing that people don't realize, right? And I'm not sure if he's going to touch on this. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But if you're playing through your TV, let's say that is your main form of gameplay on an Xbox, right? But without the console, you're paying your £20 and your £15 in the UK, and you've got your Game Pass Ultimate, and you're playing xCloud games through your TV. How are you exactly playing those? Well, you're playing it through your TV, right? No need for an Xbox. Har, 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 har. But what is that xCloud connecting to in order to play? It's connecting to either a Series S or a Series X, depending on if the blades are still 1 or split into 4. Which means that you are technically an Xbox console player, right? So if 5 million people subscribe to Ultimate and play through their TV and use xCloud as a way of playing their games, that is 5 million consoles that are being played on. So the notion that this is going to push away third-party developers, well, no, because what they're actually doing is enabling you to play the game on a console while not owning the console. So you're still playing on the console. So the number of consoles out there are exactly related to the number of subscriptions for Game Pass Ultimate, if not higher, right? But then we look at mobile as well, and I'm sure he's going to touch on to this. But now you can play your own games through the cloud, which stream off an Xbox console. So even if you are streaming from and playing on your mobile, you are still playing on an Xbox console, just not directly. You are remoting into it, but it is still a console. So if Microsoft in the next few days announces, hypothetically, that their Game Pass subscriptions increase to 50 million, and Game Pass Ultimate, say, is like 46 million, that is 46 million console users out there. End of story. That is 46 million console users out there. That's a pretty big difference and way of thinking, right? So what Microsoft is doing here is not a bad thing. Even though people consistently think it is getting people onto the console experience, I guess, without having a console. And if they're really happy with what they're getting and just want a plug-and-play device with Game Pass, they're not going to buy a PS5 to play those games. They're going to go and buy an Xbox. Because why would they want to pay $70 for the game when they can just pay $150 a year for Game Pass? A lot of people out there outside of, the PlayStation fans don't really care for ownership much anymore. Since the inclusion of Netflix and other stuff like that, ownership has really gone downhill. There are still some, I'm not going to say there's not, but the way we consume content has changed dramatically over the past 10-15 years. And digital purchases has made that more and more obvious. But anyway, let's continue.
Now, when you put it all together, you can come now and see that as Steam is adopting this, it's now exposing a lot of these folk, because a lot of these folk, man, I can tell you for sure that many of them are either willfully ignorant about the reality, or for the most part had pretty much gone ahead to, you know, lie to themselves that somewhere, somehow they actually had the right idea in terms of how this thing was going to work, and that console was going to be pretty much the main way that you play video games. I got to go ahead and tell you, most of us that are watching these videos and talking about these video games were in the demographics of Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, and so on and so forth. Many of us are not paying attention to the way the younger generations are approaching their gaming and how they're actually dealing with it. If you are, you will realize that this whole console thing is a fugazi. These kids have access to some of their favorite games on mobile phones. They have access to some of their favorite games on their tablets. They have access to some of their favorite games on devices that they even use in academics and education. And so console sales, waiting for these kids to go out there and buy a console, or waiting for them to ask their mommy and their daddy to get them a console without having introduced yourself to them first as a company who makes games, is literally detrimental to you. Now, PlayStation operates on the reality that most adults who have played on PlayStation will more than likely continue their children on PlayStation. But what if those adults are not in the mood to actually buy, or at least, you know, get their kids a PlayStation console?
The only thing I have to say against that is that the current sales numbers from Sony, well, shipped numbers, I guess, say the contrary. Even though it's a statement came out saying that 25% of those consoles haven't actually been switched on, and they're probably still in warehouses. Whether that's, you know, we're all going by the fact that that's true, but whether it is or not is unknown. The current model that PlayStation is employing is clearly working for them. So there is a bit of debate there, and I'd like to look at both sides. But what he's saying with the younger generation is on point, because I see it all the time. You know, kids are more on mobile devices or devices that can be used in a mobile form than they prefer to just sitting down on a console. At least through my experience, even though it is limited to just friends and family, it's just what I've seen. So it's a bit of a double-edged, that one. It's a bit of a grey area, but I do get what he's saying. But one point I did want to touch on is Steam, right? Because Steam has basically allowed their games to run on PCs when you don't own a PC. On Xbox right now, if I really wanted to play Wukong, I can play it through GeForce Now, and I can either play the Steam version, and I can play the Steam version on my Xbox. And what that means is I'm not playing it through my PC. I haven't bought a PC, so Nvidia or AMD is losing money out from me because I'm not buying their hardware. Intel is losing money, AMD is losing money because I'm not buying their processors. All these other companies are losing money from me not buying their RAM or motherboard or their PC cases, etc. I'm just playing it through the cloud on Steam. And so as far as Steam's concerned, they don't care. Because they don't care if that hardware is supporting it or not. What they care about is you buying the software. And as far as I'm concerned, I've just saved money not buying a £1,500 PC because I'm getting a 4080 experience on the cloud. And honestly, that's better than most people right now when they actually have native rigs. And you can enable stuff like NVIDIA Reflex to get that better latency. You know, I had latency from GeForce Now at 2 milliseconds. That's crazy. That's really, really good. But what I'm saying is, Microsoft isn't even the first. Well, I guess they were. You know, they did beat Steam to it, but Steam has jumped on this bandwagon for quite a while and is profiting off it like crazy as people play their PC games off their TV through GeForce Now. Why isn't anyone complaining about that?
These kids don't need a console to actually game. They don't have many of them don't have consoles, and their parents aren't like just running out there to buy them, you know, $400-500 consoles. And so what they're doing is these kids, they're basically using their phones. And a lot of these phones that the parents are giving them by their teenage years, they're getting from a lot of their providers for basically free. So, well, I say free in quote. Someone pays for it and you pay for it, but it's, you know, it's added into your, you know, your entire phone plan, where you basically are paying, you know, these exorbitant rates in some cases. And in some cases, you're paying very, you know, decent, affordable rates. And now you have a device in your hand that's basically better than, say, even a Nintendo Switch in some cases. And these companies are like, man, we have to go meet these folk there. We have to go where these people are playing their games. And so for the, you know, boom.
And this is something that Alex says as well a lot. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I always agree with what Alex says, because I don't. But one of the points he usually makes, which I do agree with, is that if the customers aren't coming to you, you go to your customers. Right? Something, you know, if you watch Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay says this quite often. If the customers aren't coming to you, you go to your customers and find out what it is they want, and you provide the service that's more suited to them, because that's business. And at the end of the day, all these games companies are a business. But if the consumer isn't coming to you, or there's a large portion of the consumer base that isn't coming to you, you need to find a way to go to them. Because the sooner you can get them locked in onto your platform, you know, your ecosystem, the better.
Boomers in some cases, and for the millennial like myself in some cases, it's hard to imagine that, you know, the traditional methodology of playing these games are gone or are going away in that regard for their generation. No.
And I agree, you know, despite the fact that I've adapted and adopted the new system, there is a part of me that's always fighting back. There is a part of me, even when I'm just talking to friends and stuff about it, that resists it, that kind of pushes back and doesn't want it. But then there's a part of me that says, you know what? This actually means that I can play more games. I get access to more games. The Xbox Play Anywhere scheme is awesome. And it just makes me able to play on different devices, but still play within my Xbox ecosystem and using my gamer tag and stuff like that, and still getting rewarded for it. So there's a lot happening there. And I get it. Like, for people of my generation, the millennial, I guess I fall into the millennial, especially the boomer generation, you are going to push back. There is going to be an inherent resistance there, because you've gamed in a certain way for so long. I remember back in the 360 days, I said to myself, I would never ever buy digital. I was playing games in my friend's bedroom. I went around his place and we were sitting there just playing multiplayer. And you know, that used to be a thing, by the way, before all of this Xbox Live stuff became mainstream and online gaming became mainstream. People actually used to go to people's houses and game. Shock horror, I know. Can't even imagine people doing that today. But that used to be a thing, and it used to be cool. It's something that's lost to this generation, and something that you just can't experience now. And believe me, it was a better time then than it is now. But what I will add is that now I can't imagine myself buying a physical as opposed to a digital. And that's a big contrast from I will never buy a digital game. At the time, I was importing games from PlayAsia because I wanted to play those games instead of buying them, and I wanted to own those games. But now, I just don't care. I just want to play them and move on. Eventually, like all my other games, like from my Mega Drive and thing, they're gonna get old and wither and stop playing. Most of the time, I just sell everything now because they're just sitting there and depreciating value. They're just taking space, and that's something I personally just don't have a lot of.
For us, we got our thing going. You know, we like our, physical devices. In some cases, as a PC gamer, you like that setup. You like all that stuff. But you're seeing right now that, there's a transition going on, and technology is starting to move quite differently. I'm looking at this Steam announcement of the Steam OS being available on different platforms. I'm looking at even some PC gamers saying, I would like to have and get a hold of this. I even saw this comment here where someone is saying, they should have these things on TV. Some people are saying, announce a SteamOS console that's a bit cheaper than the Steam Deck, and I can hook it up to my TV and play Balatro, please. People are actually talking about this. I hope the next SteamOS is becoming downloadable to install on any PC this year. Will be perfect time since Windows 10 reaches end of life by October, and a lot of people don't want to upgrade to Windows 11. So if I get a Lenovo Legion Go S, I can play my Steam games on that. I don't have to get a Steam Deck, because I was thinking of buying the Steam Deck soon. Yes, you can play your Steam games, basically anywhere, is what Steam is saying. And this stuff is being heralded.
I just want to point out that that's not entirely true. Anything that requires anti-cheat at a kernel level, and I know Steam have been working on trying to fix this for a long time by trying to lock the kernel 0 level, and they're getting there. They're slowly getting there. But at the moment, anything that requires kernel 0 level anti-cheat does not work on the Steam Deck. It's just not playable because anti-cheat won't install at that. Publishers will not install their anti-cheat at that level because it can be reverse engineered and hacked to absolute crap.
Stuff is actually being, in a sense, commended. And I strongly believe that as Xbox was actually getting into the market to do this, and a lot of people were basically trying to mock Xbox, they were coming from a place of malice, and they were coming from a place of basically willful vitriol. They were not here to have good conversations and genuine, investigative knowledge about what the heck was going on. They only cared about list wars and console wars, and my console sold 60-something million units and such. But Steam, having never even had much in terms of hardware, they've had some hardware, is still over there trying to now finally push some hardware while already being successful because they have a platform. And the platform is what Xbox has been building for the longest time, even though it already had a console.
And the point he's making here is, despite Steam having a complete monopoly on the PC market, no one wants the Ubisoft launcher or the Origin launcher or GOG launcher. No one wants any of this stuff. All they want is Steam. So Steam, if you don't release your game on Steam, it's going to die because the PC master race just don't go to any other launcher. So to me, that is called a monopoly, right? The community has dictated and Steam has won, and it's created a monopoly. But that's not enough for Steam because there's markets out there that don't come to them. And hence this is why they outsourced to GeForce Now. That's a new market for them. They're going to the consumer. The consumer, those consumers that aren't coming to Steam on PC because they don't want a PC, they're going to those consumers and saying, hey, look, we will give you a PC-like experience. Whether you play through Boosteroid or GeForce Now, we are giving you that option. You can play it on your TV, your tablet, just connect a controller, and you will get a PC-like experience on those devices, and you can still play the games and buy them through Steam. And now they've done it with a Steam Deck, and now they're looking at potentially, if the rumors are true, a Steam console. But what they're doing is they're going to the customer. This is exactly what Microsoft is doing. But Microsoft is getting hassled, berated, belittled, and criticized for it. Whereas Steam, on the other hand, is being heralded, praised, and cheered for like the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, what's the difference between the two? In terms of corporations, the only thing they care about is money. So, what's the real difference? Why is one hated for doing it and the other isn't?
PlayStation has a console, but has, in this moment, not necessarily built a comprehensive platform. And this lack of a comprehensive platform is basically what they were kind of, in a sense, reeling from in terms of their, company and what they didn't have compared to Xbox when their Insomniac leak of 2023 came to light. They knew that Xbox had this available to them. When Jess Corden published that article, and I was looking at it all this while, and we've been talking about it from when the leaks came out. You guys remember, there was a Marvel Spider-Man 2 build that got even dumped out there in the internet that some, pirates went ahead and compiled and put together. And a bunch of people have already played Marvel Spider-Man 2 on PC. So the launch coming later, in the month, or I think beginning of next month, I can't remember exactly the date, it's not going to have a much impact on a lot of people, especially seeing how PlayStation wants, you know, the PlayStation requirement. Some people are going to laugh and say, nope, they're going to go, you know, get a pirated version of the game, which is absolutely sad, because I'm the kind of guy that would love to double dip. As a PlayStation guy myself, in many cases, I play a lot of PlayStation games. I'm looking at this going, this is crazy. So when they were...
It is, because essentially what Sony is saying is, please pirate our game. We're not going to release it in your country, so go get it in whatever way you want and play it. And honestly, I think what Sony should do, for those countries that have PSN, fine, if you really want to enforce it. But for those countries that don't have PSN, they should waive it. They should waive that requirement. End of story.
Saying this, and they said, you know, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision positions it to leapfrog our current pillars. Why was PlayStation actually saying this at the time? They were saying it because of the following reasons: that Activision provides incredible strategic value across live service games, scaling mobile and PC storefront. A PC storefront is not something that PlayStation has decided to go ahead and put into practice. I've been saying this for the longest time, that PlayStation needs to get its PC storefront. Sure, they can still rely on Steam and Epic Games, but it doesn't remove them from actually doing it to create an extension of their console platform to anybody who may want to come in there. Now, they're going to have to learn how things are done. They're going to have to learn how to appeal to the PC audience. But at the end of the day, there is nothing wrong in doing this. Then they said this, in addition, Microsoft is building a mobile gaming store to compete with Apple and Google. They already realized that Microsoft was basically expanding beyond the box, and to them, they considered that a threat. They considered that a leapfrog over them, and still yet, they have not really done anything. They have it in their plans to do it, but they're still basically going ahead and just sitting there. They even talked about the fact that Microsoft can actually supply multi-game subscription 50%, console games, and PC games. So everything right now that Microsoft had basically been castigated for, Steam is getting their hands into, Steam is getting basically heralded for, and PlayStation not doing it makes it, according to these folks, seem like PlayStation has, in quote, a solid plan. It's like up is down and down is up with a lot of the video game analysis and the video game market analysis.
And that's what I've been saying, that's what I said earlier, right? Microsoft is doing exactly what Steam is doing right now, and Microsoft really pushed it before them, but Microsoft is being criticized for this. But when Steam does it, it's the best thing since sliced bread. The hypocrisy of the gaming community and the gaming media is there for everyone to see. Maybe Microsoft reacted a little too early, like the Xbox One with the TV. If they'd done that TV approach on the Series X, it probably would have been a better time. They were way too early, and maybe they were a bit too early with the cloud stuff going forward when they announced it. But the bottom line is, when Microsoft does it, it's really bad and they're being mocked. When Steam does it, they're being mocked. And when PlayStation do it, which they will, they are going to be praised as a genius move. So why is it when Microsoft does it, it's a bad thing? Why is it the only company, Microsoft, when they do it, everyone turns against them? Surely I'm not the only one that's noticed this. I mean, you can see it on screen right now. Exciting news for gamers, Steam OS expands to Lenovo. Like, they're really happy that it's going over. But these same people were saying that Microsoft is stupid for doing it. But why? You're literally praising another company doing exactly what you called another company stupid for doing it. Like I said, the hypocrisy in gamers is unfounded. It is just ridiculous.
That a lot of these people forget that innovation is basically how you win in the video game market. It's just so weird at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, that this is where we are right now in today's conversation. And so when I think about how, we've approached this whole thing, I strongly believe right now that a lot of the folk who have basically sat down to make fun of this stuff, I strongly think that they need to be the ones that get, examined as to what they were thinking when they saw this advancement. Because I believe you me, if there are places PlayStation fanboys and PlayStation was doing what Xbox was doing with things like Game Pass and such, they'd be hailing it from the rooftops. They'll be shouting how great it is. I mean, some of these folk were telling you that Concord was actually a great game. I mean, do you remember that? Yeah. So,
and there it is. If PlayStation had Game Pass, they would be cherishing it. I mean, at the same time, right? PlayStation Extras and Premium is offering the same thing, just not day-and-date games. They're offering a less of a service, but people are still playing those games and not buying them. So why aren't they looking at their own when they look at the PlayStation Essentials games, PlayStation Premium games, and say, look, why aren't you buying those? Why are you playing them on the service? And I'm sure every single one of them have played a game that was released on Plus, Premium, or Extras. I know every single one of them have gone in and played it that is criticizing Game Pass. They're not buying those games. They're playing it on the service. They are renting the game. But yet they are praising renting games on PlayStation, but criticizing the renting games on Xbox. And that once again shows you the hypocrisy of that fan base. But like he said, these people were capping for Concord. And Concord made huge mistakes, right? The core of the game was just purely broken. The game wasn't even running locked at 60 FPS. It was dropping frames on the PlayStation 5. It just wasn't it. Certain, many combatants just weren't very useful. The core was just fundamentally broken. A headshot from a sniper rifle should be an instant kill, and it wasn't. There are other fundamental problems. You're playing a hero shooter without a hero moment. Right? The whole game pretty much became Destiny 4v4. And yet these people were championing it because it was a PlayStation game. And now those same people are crying, why did Concord have to die but Marvel Rivals gets to live? Because Marvel Rivals is just a better game. It's a superior game. That's really all there is to it. But this fan base is very, very hypocritical. It's one rule for me, but definitely a different rule for you. And what he's saying here is 100% on point.
Again, you can see how, for the most part, their bias can show. And it's very interesting when it comes down to the fact that these particular actions are getting validated all over the place. Thanks for watching the video. Talk to me in the comment section. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out. When Xbox said that in their marketing campaign, if you didn't all over the place. Thanks for watching the video. Talk to me in the comment section. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.
And that's the video. And I think that's pretty much on point, right? I think this video was really, really good. It's outlined how Microsoft, in my opinion, was right to go the way they're going. I think Microsoft has, reacted to the market trend. And I know people are going to say, well, look, Sony sold 60 million. But it's not the 160 million the PS2 sold. And it's not the 120 million that the PS4 sold. And yes, the PS5 is supposed to be a 10-year console, which is ludicrous in this day and age while technology accelerates. And I know the Pro was introduced to kind of mitigate that downfall of the PS5, but you know what? They didn't upgrade the CPU, and that's going to be a real bottleneck for them. PSSR is still in its learning phase, and it's going to get better, sure. But all it's going to do is downscale to upscale, right? It's going to lower the internal resolution and then upscale the resolution. But how far will it actually... I mean, we've already seen where it downscales too far from already a low internal resolution. Images look terrible. Silent Hill 2 was one of them. In fact, the fix for Silent Hill 2 was to disable PSSR. That says it all, really. So the fact that they think that the console is going to go that far is crazy. But it's changing. And ultimately, Microsoft, in my opinion, though they've acted too fast, and I've said this multiple times, they are doing what's right for their consumers. They are doing what's right. They're doing what they feel is right for the business and right to maintain a strong position within the gaming community. And I think, as you will see in a year's time, when the new Xbox launches and we finally get the full picture of what this looks like, I reckon by the end of this year, we will actually see what this looks like. Maybe even by the summer. But probably by the end of this year, we will get a better picture of what this looks like. Everyone will turn around and say, do you know what? Xbox was right. And the one thing that you, as an Xbox customer, can, just need to understand. And the one thing that you, as an Xbox customer, will know, day-and-date games will continue on Game Pass. And as an Xbox consumer, if that is your preferred platform, nothing is going to change for you. And that's it. The reality is, even now, even if those said rumors are true, nothing for you is changing. All the PlayStation fans are doing is being hypocritical and trolling, and what's good for me is good for me, and what's good for me isn't good for you. And I think this was a really great video, and he broke the points down very, very well. Great stuff. Right? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.